Welcome. I'm Jeff Harrell, author of Rockne of Ages and As God's Witness, The Death of Knute Rockne. Today is my special guest. Second visit. We did our introductions in our native languages in the first segment, so I'm just going to keep this ongoing. It's an ongoing process, and this is my dear friend Kukush, Roger Kukush Williams, a vaunted elder of the Pokagon band of the Potawatomi tribe. And today we're going to, in this segment, we're going to get into a little bit about the greatest football player that Knute Rockne wrote in the book that he ever played against and that he ever saw. Jim Thorpe, who was Native American, as you all well know. If anybody who's studied Jim Thorpe at all knows, what you might not know is that he was Sac Fox and Potawatomi, and to this day he was a relative of my friend here, of Kukush. And the thing about Thorpe, the way he grew up, most people today, you know, they study Jim Thorpe and they'll even read in the book, you know, Rockne talking about, you know, Thorpe's great football prowess. You know, he said he could do anything. And the one quote that remains in my head, when Jim Thorpe tackled you, they stayed tackled.
Yeah, you want to speak a little bit about Thorpe's childhood, and try to put that in context with other natives too. For example, I remember hearing stories about his youth where he ran great distances as a youngster on the reservation. He would a lot of long distance running was going on, whether it was to be messages or in terms of emergencies or not. I don't know, but I know that is part of the way that Native youngsters were, at least back in the day, were brought up in terms of their athletic ability and building up their hunting prowess and so on is to be great runners. And as a youth, I'll just say this: I also did a lot of running, and that I think also gave me an opportunity to play sports. You know, when I was a young man, I played on championship teams. You know, and I attribute that to having those needed support to stay in good shape. And you know, when you're poor, staying in good shape and having the right food and so forth, my mom really suffered for it. I'm sure Jim Thorpe's mom and family to take care of him was also, you know, not able to be a steak every day. You know?
He was raised in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And his family went to, I believe, from Michigan to Oklahoma during the Trail of Tears.
Wow.
And
survived it.
And survived.
Actually, it's called the Trail of Death.
Trail of Death, exactly.
The Trail of Tears came out of North Carolina.
Right. And the Trail of Death
earlier in Trail of Death, we lost. I think there was like 35,000 of us that was being marched down there. I understand that about 7,000 or 8,000 died on the way.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
From starvation and scurvy and other terrible diseases, you know.
Well, making matters even more incredible in Thorpe's life was when he was sent to Carlisle Indian School in Pennsylvania, where, and now the 1890s, when he was growing up, I believe he was a year younger than Rockne, so he would have been born in 1889.
Right.
And now growing up in like the late early 1900s at Carlisle, the conditions at Carlisle Indian School, these kids didn't just go to school like, they didn't recruit athletes like they do here at Notre Dame and and put them on a training table and feed them and bulk them up and make them into these great athletes. What they would do the first time Indian children would get into school, they would cut their hair. They would cut their hair,
which was like casting them into hell.
It was,
you know,
cutting their soul.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was cutting their soul, and then they would. Most of the Indian children did not speak English. They spoke their own native language, which, by the way, was the first language of this country, not English. And then they would be made to go into schools, and they would get beaten until they spoke English.
Right. I don't recall. Did Jim go to a boarding school?
He went to Carlisle.
Was there another?
I believe that I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know when. I don't know how. I think he was a young.
But Carlisle itself had some bad.
Carlisle was one of the worst.
Okay.
From what I've read, the ones out in Utah run by the Mormons were the worst.
Yeah.
And were the absolute worst.
Right.
But the one Thorpe grew up in was bad.
Yeah.
You know,
do we want to talk about boarding schools or no? I mean, that's getting a little bit. We'll do that another time.
Okay.
Okay.
That'll work.
That's fine.
And
sticking
with Thorpe. I mean, you know, I'm just trying to lay this out just because of what an incredible athlete to come out of these conditions were. I mean, Jim Thorpe to this day is considered the greatest athlete in American history, perhaps even the world.
Yeah.
He was an Olympic champion.
Yes.
And by the way, he set a running, I don't know what the distance was, but he set a world record during the Olympics in a pair of mismatched shoes that he found out of a trash can. That he pulled out of a trash can and set a world record.
Yeah.
You know, and then
they think the conspiracy thought is that the guy that he was running against, they stole his shoes.
Right.
That's the
right.
Because they thought without his shoes he can't run.
Right.
You know. Well, he could have ran barefoot.
Right. Right.
I mean, I know about that. You know.
Well, Rockne was in awe of Jim Thorpe.
Yeah.
And there was a whole chapter devoted to Thorpe in Rockne's words.
Yeah.
You know, and Rockne's the one they were playing professional football, and I think Rockne was playing. Thorpe was playing for Canton, and Rockne was playing for. It escapes me right now, but they were playing against each other, and the famous story was that Rockne tells in the book that Rockne tried to tackle Thorpe, and Thorpe ran over him, just flattened him, and as he's walking back, he's got a smile on his face. He goes, "You just let Jim run."
Let it be. So isn't Jim Thorpe also noted for inventing the drop kick?
He invented the drop kick at Carlisle. At Carlisle,
yeah.
He was the first one to do the drop kick. Exactly.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
You know, and I got to tell you, when we were kids, after we saw that movie, Jim Thorpe All-American, all of us were practicing drop kicks, and we got pretty good too. You know.
Yeah. Well, Jim Thorpe was also the first commissioner of the NFL. When the NFL in 1920 was first formed, George Halas was a figurehead of it, with at the time the Decatur Staleys, which a year later turned into the Chicago Bears. But they brought in Jim Thorpe to be acting commissioner until they could kind of get their feet wet.
Wow.
And at the same time, Thorpe was also playing professional baseball.
How much time is that?
Yeah. I mean, he was. Did he play for the Yankees? I don't think he played for the Yankees. He played professional baseball.
Well, I got to interrupt you because didn't he lose his medals from the Olympics for the professionalism.
for the baseball, because they took away his medals that to this day they're trying to get they're trying to get them returned to the family. They've already they recognize them now, and they did overturn that.
Okay.
As far as the books.
Okay.
But the family has been trying to get the actual medals back for years.
That's important.
And it's very exactly, and they haven't been able to do that. But yes, because Jim Thorpe was a professional baseball player and a professional football player during the during the 19-teens. When he was running in the Olympics and won the gold medals in the Olympics, then they said there was a professionalism there. So,
well, thank you for allowing me to sit in with you today.
oh, Cookers, it's an honor.
I'm extremely grateful. I'm so grateful for being here, and thank you, folks, for participating in this today. And I hope we've entertained you and enjoyed our company.
Well, Cookers, your presence here today lends authenticity to the subject matter,
Right.
and it's an honor, my friend.
Thank you, brother.
It's an honor, my friend.
Thank you.
We're at Augie's Locker Room. We're gonna be back next time, and we're gonna have a lot more stuff. You can visit augieslockerroom.com and spiritofknute.com. augieslockerroom.com. If you're a Notre Dame fan and you haven't visited Augie's Locker Room, then you're really missing an important event in your life, believe me. And if you come to a home game this year, and the good Lord willing, we're going to have fans back in the stands this year from the pandemic. But, Augie, come to Augie's, wherever you're at. Come in for a home game, you got to visit Augie's. And you can pick up a book at spiritofknute.com or augieslockerroom.com. Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Harrell. Peace.